Hello, everyone. It's Ali, and I'm a digital campaigner at TUC, and we are going to have a half-an-hour webinar, me talking, and then your questions at the end. And the webinar is about how to write effective emails for organizing. I just wanted to set the scene very quickly for all of you, and we all receive loads of emails. We all send loads of emails to different kinds of people. Now, many emails get ignored, many emails get read but don't get actioned. So I wanted to talk about what makes a great email and how you can make sure that your campaign email is read and opened, as well as action on the back of it. I wanted to start with a little bit of, writing emails doesn't start at typing down. It's a bit of what is your goal, what do you want to achieve with that email, what is that piece of communication trying to do? And for you to be able to do that and to persuade people, you need to have clear theory of change. Now, that may sound a little bit like a jargon. Think of it this way. If you have a friend of yours who is roughly aligned with you or a colleague and you want to persuade them to do something, how would you explain that and how would you persuade them to take that action? And that comes back to sort of when we're talking, is there a clear target? And so if you want somebody to act, they need to know how the action they are taking will influence the decision maker or the process that is happening. And as well as that, they need to know, is there a sort of clear ask? Are you, for example, if it's about local NHS trusts, you're asking your members to send an email to someone, to the CEO of the hospital. Is that the person that would be, could keep open or close, or is that decision that is made somewhere else? The next thing that we're going to jump to is basic principles. But before I get to that, I just wanted to ask you if you could write what are principles that come to your mind for a great email. So if you could use the comment section, again, I have lost my bearings, on the right-hand side of the screen. And I will have a look at those and see which ones we have in common. Clear and concise. That's a good. Keep it short, yes. We have a lot of interesting title, yeah. Interesting title and subject line is something that we're going to come and talk about. Incentivizing headline, very important. And it also goes to what is the audience that you're sending this email to. So if the audience, if it's not relevant to me, even if it's concise, even if it's has a catchy, I will not see why I'm the person that is receiving this email. Short as possible, bullet point summary. Again, all of these are very important. So I'm going to jump to some basic principles I have written down, and they're not all of the key principles, but they are some of the basic ones that will help you start writing an effective email. They are: write to a friend. The tone of the email, if it's more personal, if it feels familiar, people are more likely to act on it or to action it. If it feels from institution or of personality, then it would be harder for you to engage those people. Another principle is show, don't tell. So show them how the action matters. Don't tell them this is important. Show them why this is important. And another one is use vivid imagery. So great example of that is a lot of time a decision is made and you want to portray that decision. So instead of saying the council decided, start with something the council has gathered in a crowded council hall to discuss our campaign. The next one is one idea, one ask per email. And I know this is something that, can come as a bit of it's a bit of outside of the norm, of newsletter emails and but if you have one ask in one email and you try to keep it clear and you try to communicate to people why that individual action matters, then you will be able to persuade. They are more likely to act on that. If I have to choose between 7 or 8 things, then it takes me more time. Every time you present a series of options to people, people have to take time to read all of those options, see what is relevant to them, and then make a decision. All of this takes time. And your experience, but in my experience, when I'm reading an email and it takes me more than a couple of seconds to understand what is going on, I move to the next email, especially if it's an email that's sent to loads of people and I know it's not directly to me. Another thing is keep the links, and that's web links that are in the email, focused on the ask. So what are you asking people to do? Make that the key web link that is there. If you have evidence or backing documents or some PDF that you want to share or some information that you want to share, use the sort of notes below the email to share those information. So people are not presented again with multiple links, multiple options that they can go down on. They are presented with one focused link, and then they can decide whether to go for that option or not. Use legitimate urgency. Why is this email being sent now? And the is legitimate. We can always create urgent sort of urgency, but urgency that doesn't feel real leads to people feeling cynical and not acting. So if every email starts with "we have only 48 hours to do," then down the line people will feel that this is an email that doesn't apply to them. This is an email that takes them for granted. Again, one of the things that is great is testing multiple subject lines. And one of the questions that I put in our poll is, what is the platform that you use for emailing? Some of our people have said sort of MailChimp. Some people are using Outlook, and I'm just looking at the poll results. So yeah, we have overall, so a lot of Outlooks, 12 Outlooks, 4 MailChimp, and 2 Gmails. So on MailChimp, you will be able to test different subject lines against each other. Simple, set that up. In Outlook and Gmail, because you are sending email with one subject line, maybe keep a track of what are the email subject lines that you are sending and what are the responses you're getting. So if it's about a newsletter, you can come back and see what worked, what didn't. The next issue that we're going to talk about is email ingredients. List, and then we have, as well as that, a sort of full recipe that makes up the email. So 2 major components to think about for each email is the moment story, and that goes before the link that you want people to act on. So this is how you're persuading people that this is something that they should do. It starts with a weird word that is crisis opportunity, and that comes from a Homer Simpson episode, and he's like, "Oh, it's a crisis. Oh, it's opportunity. Oh, it's a crisis-opportunity." And that is like, what is the crisis point that you want people to act? Why are you sending this email, this action to them now? It has to matter in the moment that people open. And the opportunity part comes in, what are you saying that they can do to change this? So, and that comes to reader-focused theory of change. So it's not like we're only saying, if X happens, if we get 100,000 people to sign this, then we can persuade someone. Back to the reader, to each individual, and go, if you sign this, then we'll be able to get 100,000 signatures, and this will matter to the decision maker. I'm going to get a bit of water and jump back. The next one is the ask. And if you notice, it's not asking for it's the ask. So hopefully, crisis unity and reader-focused theory of change, explaining why the action matters and why you're asking people now, has led people down a sort of path of thinking about the ask as being the most, the most relevant thing they could do at that moment. Then you have the link, and there goes the action. And after that is the movement story. So what is happening in the wider world, in our organization, and why we matter and can change this. So what is going on is something like, setting out the context a little, setting out, we have been involved in negotiations, for example, for a few months. We've had some setbacks, but we have, succeeded previously. Who we are explains a little bit about the values that the organization has and you have, and brings people together down the sort of shared values that, we have in the trade union movement, and that values of solidarity, respect, equality. The road that we're on gives a little bit of context in terms of this action not being a single point, but as a journey that we have in the campaign, in what we're trying to achieve. So, this could be in a month, you're 3 months down the road. So you're recapping what we have done, what we have achieved, and what we're trying that big goal to achieve next. Next, we have the full recipe. I'm sorry, my voice is slightly going. So we can come back to grabby opening, and that's the subject line. Subject lines that are designed in terms of process, in terms of, what you have with, minutes of the meeting happened at X, only communicated so much. So you have to think about what was the key decision, what was the key outcomes of that meeting, and trying to look at that and get people engaged. Then you have the problem, and that is, again, going back to what do you think the goals of the campaign, edition, email are. And if you can't articulate the problem that this piece of email is trying to solve, then maybe sending that email is not the best idea. So a problem could be that not as many people as we wanted have registered, so we aren't going to send the email to people to remind them that this event is happening. That's clear. Or, we have had the event. A lot of people that said haven't come, didn't attend. So, we're going to go back and share with them the information that came out of it. And we have the solution to this problem. So the theory of change, the ask, what we are asking people to do, and a reminder that that is a single thing rather than a series of things. So always, make a decision about what is the most impactful thing that people could do at that time with that email. And if there are multiple things, then think about break those multiple options down and create a series of different communications. So always start with, if you are starting with a wide group of people, with something that is easy and they 5 minutes and they can see their role in changing what you are trying to do. And then we have the moment, again, why this is relevant now, backing up with facts. We always want some facts to support our argument. But the key thing is that the email and all of our communication need to have a heart. And that goes back to talking to a friend, having a bit of personality in there. Then we'll repeat the ask. This is a tactic that is, commonly used. Ask the same thing twice in 2 different ways. So some people, when they read the problem and the solution, may be persuaded and go, yeah, that sounds like the right idea. I'm going to do that. But some people may need to, get a bit more facts, get a bit more of why you want to do this, and giving them a second option to act on that is, increases the likelihood to engage people. And then we go to movement stories. So who are we? What have we done? An organizational background, and then sign off and signature. And then the next one, which is something that sort of a lot of us every day don't pay attention to, but is the PS. And in terms of is the second most read part of the email after the first line. So people read the first line, and then because they're curious of what didn't make it to the email but almost made it, they go back and look at the PS. So if there is a second reaction that you have to kind of put in but didn't have opportunity to explain a lot, PS is a great place to have it on. Next, I realized there were a lot of questions about subject lines. How do we keep people interested? What are the sort of things that we could do? And I came back with sort of few different things. So now I realize not all of us have the tools to always test and have come back quite easily and quickly to us. So maybe one thing to do if you're sending regular emails is just to keep a little track for yourself. There are different subject lines that you could do and theories that you could use. So one theory is that, especially when you are closer to a deadline, 24 hours, 48 hours to something happening is a great way to engage people back in an issue that they have not paid attention to, something that has been down the line. It's happening in 3 weeks. I'll check it. You flag it on your Outlook or maybe put it in a special folder in your Gmail, but then you haven't come back to it. And this is a great way to engage people. So, intriguing codes, maybe bring out a little line, short line from what was discussed at the meeting. Explicit issue and campaign signaling. That is more about, if you sending an email to a lot of people and, for example, they are interested in the latest round of, if there is a redundancy happening or if there's something like that happening, or if there is, the latest package negotiation, then you can explicitly mention that and then, always leave a little bit of intrigue in the subject line, so people feel like they need to see what's happening. Information is there. If you can customize subject lines, brilliant, do that. So customizing subject lines a lot of times, it's not possible if you're using Outlook or Gmail, but if you're using other emailing tools, you can easily put someone's first name in the subject line, and that engages people a lot. And then sort of, 3 things that I wanted to say about it is it needs to be clear, and needs to be clear from the point of view of the person who's receiving the email, rather than the point of view of you. So would your friend that has not paid attention to this campaign, but if you send that email to them, would they understand what it is about? Second thing is leaving a little bit of, curiosity gap and intriguing people. You can tease people with sort of, are you ready for change? Questions, or, how I spend my weekend. If you had a campaign action and, a lot of people came and joined, you could do some, shorter subject lines that are pure emotion, very much like how Trump ends his tweets. Sad, amazing. All of those things just quickly grab people. Why is this amazing? I want to know more. And then the next one that we go, you have now thought a lot about what's in the component, but before you send the email, hold a second and check a few things. Subject line, we talked a lot about it. Is it clear? Is it the best subject line? A lot of times what I do is very quickly on a notepad write 5 or 6 different subject lines, very similar to each other, and then go, which one of them would I open? And I just pick that and go, yeah, that's like, I would open what did Jeremy Hunt do next. I would open that. What if it's NHS next round of consultations wouldn't open. So, again, relevance to the user, relevance to the reader, but not from your point of view. So people are normally not interested in process, but what they are interested in is tidbits of information that they could. Next thing is the email skimmable. So one thing that I do and a lot of different organizations do is you bold certain sections of the email to be readable and to make it have sort of, if people, for example, if email is 20 different sentences, you just highlight 3 sentences. What is the problem? What is the solution? What are you asking people to do? Just those 3 sentences. So someone looking at the mobile can understand what's happening and what you want to do. If they want to read the whole thing, then they're more than welcome to read the whole thing, but it's immediately skimmable. Next one, does it sound like it comes from a friend to a friend? If it sounds like it comes from an institution to people that it doesn't know, then your email's not going to engage people. It's not going to get them excited. A lot of times we have a hesitance to write in a more informal way, but the correct sort of think about is imagine a single person that you're writing the email to. Imagine someone that you know in real life that would receive that email and then write it to them. If we are writing to hundreds of people, it's harder not to fall into the formal thing because we want to be on safe ground. We don't want to say something that is a bit, formal. But if you imagine that single person, then that's much easier. Next test, would your mom understand it? If you send that email to her and went, look, this is what I'm doing, would she go, what is going on? That's great. I'm totally sold out on this, and I'm going to do what you said. Another version of that test is, would you, outside of the context of your job and the brain, take action in response to that email? Does this, what you have written, persuade you to take that action? Next is, do you rely a lot on rhetoric or facts? And, and it can feel like a larger policy paper, too much rhetoric, and it can feel quite shouty and, indifferent to reality. And then, can you swap out different paragraphs? And then final thing is, what can you test? So this is a lot about, email, what's in there, what kind of things work. Next, there are a few free tools, and I know people were interested in free tools and how they can make the emails better. So there are 3 different tools. You can check them out, but I can also send them. We're going to send this presentation to you. My colleagues are saying yes. And as well as that, I can send you some of my notes that are here, quite extensive ones, so you can get a better understanding of what I've talked about if you haven't had the chance to write it all rapidly down. So the first website, and all of these are free website available to everyone, is Hemingway app. And Hemingway app, basically, when you put your text into it, it gives you 3 different colors. If all of the text is red, then the sentences are quite difficult to understand. It would make it harder to read, and it also means that a lot of people get confused and leave. It gives you red, amber, and sort of no color. It's transparent. And then that's what you want the text to be like. Then you have the co-schedule headline analyzer. As much as it's a terrible, terrible name, and I agree with all of you, as sort of headline analyzer, they have not analyzed that headline as much as they should, is a great tool to test out, when I said come up with 5 subject lines, just quickly enter them in, and it gives you I think basic marking of 1 to 100 of how engaging they are. So it's an independent tool that has looked at millions and millions of emails that have been sent and just test that for you. And the last one writer.com, and that gives you a reading age of your text. Ideally, you want to write for a reading age of somewhere between 11 and 12. You're not writing for kids, you're not writing for academics, and most of the time, most of us are not communicating to ministers in a very formal setting or anything like that. So you want the text to be readable, you want the text to be easily understandable, and the writer gives you a reading age, and that is great indicator for how you can it allows you to bring the reading age down. So if you have how I would do it is normally I write my text, drop it into Hemingway, make the sentences a bit simpler to understand. All of us write as a first draft is not always the brilliant one. Leave it for 5-10 minutes, come back to it, and you will get a much better result after you have come back to it with a fresh pair of eyes. And then check that with a writer every now and then. So if you want to check all the emails that you send and see what the reading age is, that's a great way to benchmark what you were doing, how you're going to do things differently next. So that's about all from me. We do a little bit about our next webinar, but then after that, I'm going to pay attention to all of the questions that you have, and my colleague, you haven't seen the screen yet, Anna on the side of me, may help me read out some of the questions. Webinar from the TC Education is on sexual harassment in the workplace. Now that's something that's been, covered in the media, and next Thursday at 2:30, my colleague Catherine would be doing the webinar. To that, it would be on the same website, and you can register there. But yeah, thank you so much. And I'm now going to look at some of the questions and drink some water.
Okay, Ali, so the first question we've had, what do you mean by a test subject line?
So test subject line. So test subject line is like showing two colors of t-shirts to someone and going, which one do you prefer? But instead of doing that, with MailChimp or applications like that, you can do it to thousands of people. And what MailChimp mailer applications do is keep a track of how many people the email, and then the email that was more successful, more engaging, they send that subject line to more people. Does that explain it?
Can you explain the crisis-tunity phrase again, please?
Yeah. So I'm going to go back and look at my notes that have the clearer crisis-tunity in there. So the crisis-tunity, in a nutshell, is that one sentence that makes the email make sense. So it encapsulates what the problem is, solution is. So going back to the earlier example, is, for example, a rally that we want to go to that is important, and we want to show that we are supporting this campaign, this action, and not many people attended. So you start with, the event that we have organized on X date, not many of us have, or not many of us have RSVP'd. Again, this needs redrafting. And you say, I'm sending you this information so you have the opportunity to go to that event. Does that make sense? Again, I got a lot more notes here, so don't worry. I'm going to send them around after this.
Next question. What have been your most effective emails for getting members to take action in your experience?
So most effective emails have been the most timely emails. So when something is happening, dropping stuff that is less urgent and immediately capturing that news moment, that hook that is happening, is the best way to keep people engaged. So, people are far more likely to open an email about the budget on the budget day, even if it is not, the full response and it doesn't have all bells and whistles about what, you think, you agree, you disagree with. But, that's topical. That's on the day. People want to have information faster. So the most effective thing I would say is time. And then second to that is relevance. So why am I being sent that email? You can send a very, very sort of timely email to loads of people, but loads of people who don't work on that issue or are not interested in that issue and still, miss the mark a little bit.
We've had a comment and a question here. It's good to find out about mixing it up. So if people are wise to uber professional looking MailChimp emails, how can an individually sent email get through an inbox overload?
So this is one of the things, because I'm a sad email geek and I subscribe to a lot of email lists. This was one thing that I saw, especially in United States political campaigns were doing. They were designing emails as if they had been written on someone's mobile. So, there's no necessity to have, little moving pictures in there or animations in there or amazing tune or anything like that. All you need is for the text to be relevant, short, concise, going back to the earlier comments, readable, and make sense. So that is how I would get through the clutter that is our inboxes. If your emails are consistently relevant to the people that you're sending emails to, you would be far more likely to see action on back of those emails than an organization that sort of has spent, money on a full MailChimp template that, but doesn't send the right sort of email, doesn't send relevant email, or something like that.
Okay, we're getting lots of questions sent in here. I think we've probably got time for a few more, but if you do send in more, I think there's obviously lots of scope for us to have Ali back to do a follow-up webinar, maybe a part 2, part 3. So keep posting the questions, and if we don't get to them all today, we will post up some answers or cover them in a future webinar. So we've just got another question saying, just said about the most effective email campaigns being timely. What tips do you have for a long-running campaign that we want to increase participation in? Perhaps they're not always urgent issues, or is it best just to find other ways of communicating and mixing it up?
Yeah, so, you have, this is amazing. You have now to identify the urgency as a key thing, and urgency is really important. But sometimes, as you say, campaigns run for a while. And then the important thing would be, one option is we need to take action before the next company's board meeting. That's urgency package. It's all there. It's all ready to go. The next one sort of thing that you could do is more general is, again, use phrases that make now more relevant. So like right now, we have the opportunity to shape the thinking around this issue, right? Create an opportunity and then seize it. So right now, the company is thinking about this. They have, the company, the sort of target of the campaign may have gone into silent mode, but you can use that as an opportunity to solidify your message and get people to talk about it in a way that you want.
Do you have a recommendation for emails?
My recommended length would be as short as possible. So again, depends who it's to and what it's trying. Every email that I have written, I have sort of been successful half an hour later to cut at least 25% of it. First time we write, there's always a little bit more stuff and a little bit more stuff that is not necessary. So you can always make stuff sharper. And that would be my first advice. Write down what you think you should be communicated, and then narrow that down to what persuades people to take that. In terms of like email sort of length, email is not a blog, email is not a PDF. So always think about the last email that you received that you acted on, how much it was. You know, the best thing for what works is to look at your own behavior. And a lot of times, you know, I just get my mobile and look at different emails, and, you know, if stuff is not relevant and it's long, I'll just, you know, archive it and don't pay any attention. But if you wanted to push me on a number, 200, 300, 400 words, don't go over that, because, you know, after that, you have to think about whether this is one, whether this is multiple emails that you are sending as one. So, you know, if you have written that one long email, think about how you could communicate that in series of journeys to people. So they receive the first one, what would they do? They receive a second one, what would they do? And this is something, if you're interested in, we can have a different session.
Ben has asked, we have a problem with our emails getting auto-moved to the clutter folder in Office 365. Any advice on how to avoid that?
Yeah, so moving to clutter, spam folder, all of these things is a lot of times, you know, these email systems are still very good. And I think one of the questions early on what we had when the sort of session started was, is email still relevant? So I'm going to answer that one first before I answer the second one. And is email relevant? Look, we've had in the last few years, Facebook, Twitter, WhatsApp, but, you know, if you look at how you could communicate to people, a lot of those platforms are still not platforms that are work platforms, not professional platforms. And if they are changing the rules of the game constantly. So as an organization, we know that, you know, Facebook would like us to promote our material instead of just showing it to everyone that follows us. And these constant rule changes mean that, you know, email is still best way of communicating directly from you to a lot of your members and, you know, supporters. Question, a lot of times it can come from having a lot of links in the email. So, you know, if you're trying to put a link in the email, which is important because you want people to go somewhere, this may get a little bit annoyingly technical, but make sure the link in front of it has the https ... / rather than www. So that means that when Google is before sending it on, it looks, okay, this is a protected website, this is a secure website, this is not a website that is going to scam people, and allows that to go forward. Another thing is to reduce the number of links and images that you have in the email. So, you know, if an email has 20 links, it's far more likely to be caught in a spam folder if it has 2. And another thing that I should say is a lot of times moving to the spam folder can be consequences of people marking the email as spam. So always look at the people. If people have not if you have something like MailChimp, you can identify if someone hasn't opened any of the last 10 emails. So if someone hasn't opened any of the last 10 emails, then you need to treat them differently to someone who's opened the last 10 emails. So, you know, move them out of the people that you are emailing, and it's far more likely that MailChimp will deliver all of the emails that you want to the people who have been more recently engaged. All done here. Any other questions? Otherwise, I'm going to say goodbye. One thing that I wanted to, so if I can go, and could we go to the full ingredient list? I just wanted, my colleague Anna is putting the full email ingredient list together. So this is quite a bit of a recipe. So if you feel like, you know, this is too complex, always think about the 2 things. The 2 things are, why are you sending this email? and what are the sort of, what is the movement story? What is the background to this email? So you want to give people a clear action to do, ideally one, and this is very different to, and then they have 20 different things in there, but this is different type of email. And then you want to let them know what journey we've been on and how this action will contribute to the change we all want to see. All right, that's all from me. Thank you so much. And yeah, thank you to the team from TUC Ed. And final plug for Catherine's session next Thursday at 2:30 on sexual harassment in the workplace. Thanks. Bye.